Hello, everyone, and we are here today with Nik Agharkar. We're going to talk about the windfall, the big money, what so many entrepreneurs, business owners are striving for. I just want my business to grow so fast and so quick. And we're going to talk about what happens when that happens. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good. So we're going to dig into that. And Nik is a great person to talk about this with because one of the things that you need to be able to handle that windfall is good structure, good foundation. And Nik's business is about tax and law. He's the founder and managing member of Crown Point Tax and Wealth Counsel. So he guides people and families and their businesses through the intricacies of wealth preservation, tax strategy, and legal planning. And so he's got the knowledge about the law, the economics, the finance, the public policy, and his superpower is finding those obscure little provisions in the tax code that are going to work for you specifically. And that means you get that creative, that tailored, that strategy that is just right for you, your business, your family, and what you want to create in the world without paying a bunch of taxes. Did I get that right, Nik?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Genea, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited for the discussion to talk about responsible growth.
That sounds so boring right now. We're like, no, we're going to talk about the windfall and all of the money. So was it this business that you had the big windfall and it
No.
grew really big?
So what happened? What had happened? I was at a law firm, and I was an
Uh-huh.
associate, right? I was a sort of a regular, just lawyer in a law firm. And I went to the partners, and I was like, "Listen, I think I want to be a partner too. How do you do that, right?" Their response was, you got to bring in business, right? If you want partnership, you have to show that you can bring in clients and basically kill what you eat. So I looked at kind of how they did it, and their model was heavily based on referrals from other attorneys. Problem with that is that you have to pay a referral fee. And so you're killing your margins, right? It's not as efficient as if you originated the case. So at that time, the internet was still something of the wild, wild west. This was, believe it or not, only a little over 10 years ago. So back then, I don't think people remember, Facebook was kind of the only game in town.
Right.
Instagram had only just started. And what Facebook had was effectively a corner on the internet advertising market. And they had all of our data, right? We were all on Facebook. We were all using it.
Right.
And what you could do, and then this doesn't work anymore because of data privacy laws, what you could do is scrape the internet for IP addresses of people that have visited your website. And then you could go back and basically track them, right? You could see where they were going. And if a pattern emerged that, oh, this person might be a good client based on where they go, we would serve them ads, right? And show them, hey, you could come work with our law firm. Now, I thought, okay, this is maybe a way that I can make partner, but no one wanted to put any money behind this idea. And so I was told, look, you just got to do it the old way, right? Just go out, hustle, miss your family, no more dinners at home for you, right? Go out and hustle and make it happen. I didn't want to do that. I just couldn't see myself doing that, given that the internet existed and there was a better way. So I quit. I quit my job with no clients. I took nobody with me. I think my daughter was 3 months old at the time. So as you can imagine, my wife was thrilled to hear that I did not do any more work, right? And start a business. So I executed on this plan. And in addition to doing some of that networking as well and getting my name out there, I was able to build a very sizable book in just 9 months. So between 0 clients, 9 months later, I was at 122 with about a $5 million book. So that's a huge, huge growth, right? That is the windfall, right?
9 months. That's crazy. Like people are just like, I want to get to 1 million. And it usually takes them, 3 years.
Right. And so look, the issue though was that I did not prepare any systems or planning for that kind of growth trajectory. Because honestly, I didn't know what I was doing, right? I thought maybe it would work, but I didn't know, right? And ultimately, what ended up having to happen was I sold the practice in order to get scale. So in order to get, and this is pre-COVID, right? So I think a lot of us forget that before COVID, remote work was generally not available. And you
Right.
certainly didn't hear about a virtual attorney. So you needed an office, you needed to set things up for yourself as an attorney. And so I sold that practice into a much bigger firm. And there I was bored out of my mind because they gave me all of the support staff that they needed. They were amazing. They literally gave me everything I needed to run my practice, but in their way, right? How they wanted it done.
Right.
And so then, again, I was just back being effectively an employee again. I wasn't building a business. I wasn't running a business. I was just an attorney again. I was bored out of my mind. It was awful, right? I wanted the action again of going out there and building something, right? Creating something, creating those systems. And so realizing kind of what I had done and what maybe I'd done wrong in my business foray into business, I thought, all right, well, you know what? Maybe I'll go back. I'll get my MBA. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was a management consultant. And he said, no, don't go do that. Come work with us, because basically we get dropped into these companies. We solve their problems. They pay you. You get your MBA that way. Effectively, you learn how to do all of this stuff by being in these people's companies, right? And these are Fortune 50 companies. So I did that for 3 years. And the pattern that happened, though, is when working with these executives, after our kind of work meeting was done, they would ask me, so you're still an attorney though, right? Because I don't have an estate plan. Do I need one of those? Or I have a side hustle. Do I need an LLC? Or how come my taxes are like this? Can you help me here? And so that's when the light bulb went off for me that if these very powerful and wealthy individuals, these executives, can't find good advice, or advice at least that they can trust, maybe
Right.
there's an opportunity here, right? So now, though, the strategy is very different. Instead of building as fast as I can, I'm actually trying to go as slow as I can, right? And go intentionally with the idea of I'm not looking to serve everyone. I'm not looking to come and do everything for everyone. I'm going to be very specific and very careful about who I work with and how I work with them. And I'm going to set up all of the structures so that if I do scale, that's available to me, right? So I've already set up, I'm about to, and this is now almost 3 years into this journey, I'm only just now about to start advertising, whereas most people start advertising before
Right.
the doors are even open, right?
Yeah.
Already I have that back office team prepped for, hey, what is the pace that you guys can handle, right? Because if I'm throwing, 3 to 5 people extra a month at my team, and they come back to me and say, yeah, we're falling all over ourselves, we can't handle the work, well, we will necessarily fail, because excellent work is the only thing that really matters, right? At the end of the day, if you don't deliver on what you're going to say and you don't do excellent work, people aren't going to come back to your business and you're going to get a bad reputation. So it's really important to manage that flow and manage that growth, because as we found out, too much growth too quickly can actually be kind of bad.
Yeah. Well, you're the wow, my language is just going all to shit right now. Okay. So, but the law firm you were at before, and they were having all the referral business. And there's something really great about that, because if they're growing still on some level and it's all referral, they have that foundation of the excellent service. And so that's a good thing. So you've collected that piece, and then you lose control. Interestingly enough, do you know what the kind bars are?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they had the same thing where they grew so fast that he had to sell off a big portion of the company in order to meet the demand, and then later had to buy back that. Well, he didn't have to, but he bought it back at, of course, way, way more expensively than he had sold it off. And so I think it's a really important conversation, because most people don't have the patience to set up the proper foundation and the proper systems, or they don't have the proper runway financially to do that. So tell me more about when you had the brilliant idea of growing and you left. What was it that made you leap before putting in foundation and structure?
Pure hubris and anger, right? It was, I put in my time, right, to create this system, have this idea, think deeply about it, create and think about how I want to do it. And to be told no, right, or that this won't work, or we don't really want to do this. And then in addition, be stuck back to listen, just be away from your family and, work nonstop to get business. It made me frustrated and angry and gave me that kind of, well, I'll show you attitude, right?
I,
Get dangerous. I can get away from you, right? Quite quickly. And so the decision to do that was fairly quick, right? It was like within a day I was done, right? And it was very quickly that I was back out on my own, or just out on my own for the first time. And it happens to all of us as entrepreneurs where we have this idea and we want to get started. We want to get that momentum going. And I think part of the thing that kept me from stopping, right? Because there was a point where, 100 clients, 50 clients, that's enough, right? But kept going. Why did I keep going? It's that dopamine hit, right? That dopamine hit of, oh, I can get another one and I can get another one. Look at this. This system is amazing. Look what I made, right? And it's working so well. And oh my goodness, this is just so much more reaffirmation. And it creates a feedback loop. Problem is that if you don't focus on what happens after, right? What happens after you catch the car, you're gonna have a lot of problems, right? I mean, so yeah.
yeah. Well, and if you're if you were fueled initially by that I'll show them and that anger, like the more you get, the more you get to show them. It's that like he who dies with the most toys wins. It's like, see what I did and blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And I think when we're making our business decisions from those negative emotions, we do create that sort of hunger that's insatiable. And I think from what I've seen, the clients I've worked with and, the entrepreneurs we all study as entrepreneurs, when people have that hunger, they don't treat their staff well, they don't treat their clients well, and they themselves are almost eating themselves up alive, where you're just stuck, like you're in this working all the time thing, like where you don't get to see your kids, you don't get to have those other things in life that are those like higher level emotions, the peace, the love, the joy, the freedom, and that. So tell me what you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely correct. And I think that when we get to the heart of it, I think there's a lot of problems with social media around this as well, right? We
Mhm.
are fixated on what other people have, the stories, the highlight reels that we see online, and we ask ourselves, well, hey, how come I'm not there? Without asking the more relevant question is, do I want to be there? Right? I mean, we don't stop and ask ourselves, what do I actually want? Rather, we compare ourselves to maybe our competitor and say, oh, I want what he has. I've had to work really hard to change that mindset. I don't want that, right? I don't want some giant, large, monolithic corporation. I want to be able to stay a boutique. I want to be able to service a select group of people and really do excellent work. And I think that there's a way to scale that, right? But you have to do it slowly. And you have to do it really with feedback from clients, especially in a service-based business like mine, right? We have to make sure that we're scaling the right things, right? Because I've also seen, and I'm sure you too, is entrepreneurs scale the wrong thing, right? So they've actually put more effort into something that isn't working in their business, ignoring the thing that is working just to fail, right? Because if you put more gas behind something that's not working, it's just going to keep not working, but now be more expensive. So why not put the gas behind what is working, right? And then actually get some results. Yeah.
Well, and I think that really speaks to understanding yourself well enough as the founder, as the CEO, as the owner, depending on what level of business you're in. But if your superpower is being able to really, like, your superpower, one of them is to find those little nuanced things. And when you're doing massive big scale, you can't find those little nuanced things as effectively. You don't get to pick out those details because everything gets broader and broader and broader. And so finding a way where you get to use your superpowers and the things that light you up in a way that creates a business that makes you feel proud of yourself, makes you feel good and about how you're contributing to the world, I think is really important.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I think that too many entrepreneurs worry about their logo, their website, what they're even going to call their business, all of these things that ultimately are irrelevant. It's really, it has to start with your, honestly, your heart and what you want. What are you trying to accomplish here? Amazon is famous for doing this with their products. So they will get their product teams together and have them write a press release. And the press release is for the release of the product. And this is before they've even started any work on it, right? And everyone comes together and basically writes this press release on what the product does, how it was built, what that journey was like, some of the challenges they faced, and then why this product is so groundbreaking, right? It's the end. That is the end of the project. So they have started by clearly defining what the end of this project looks like. If you just map that over to your business now, so what does the end of this business look like? Are you
Mm,
selling it? Are you giving it to your kids? Are you just going to have someone in the business take over? What's the plan here? And then once we understand what your end game is, now let's build a business that goes to that goal, right? And
right.
it meets what you need as an individual as well, right? So some of those goals are, well, it needs to provide X amount of dollars every month, right? I want it to, be able to set me up with retirement in this way. I want to try and minimize taxes as much as possible, right? These are the elements that I focus on, but there are all those other personal elements as well. I want more free time. Okay, well, if that's a goal, understand that that comes with trade-offs.
Right.
More free time means less work, and so it's going to necessarily translate to a smaller dollar figure, more likely than not, right? Depending on your industry, yeah, there's some variables there.
Right.
Don't at me in the comments. So, but more likely than not, you are trading that off then. But you have to be okay with that because that's what you want. And again, that's where I'm at. I don't want anything crazy unwieldy where I'm never around and I can never even enjoy the fruits of my labor because otherwise, what are we doing this for? What are we doing? Why do you want such a huge business if you will never get to enjoy it?
Right.
Ultimately, life's about enjoyment. So.
Well, and beginning with the end in mind is such a really important thing because if you're looking for, hey, I'm going to grind really hard for X amount of time so that I can sell this business and then have financial freedom and that's it, that's one thing. If you're creating and building a business like me, which is about what I'm going to create and open up and do for people, there's a lot of purpose, a lot of heart, as you say, behind it. That is a totally different thing. Like, yes, at some point, way, way down the line, I want my business to be able to run without me. That doesn't mean that it will.
Right.
And one of the things that I get from you, and I've known you for a bit now, it's like you have a really big heart and you lead with your heart. And so it makes sense to me that your business is going to, the one that's going to make you happy and fulfilled, is going to grow at a pace where you can still do that and really be able to take care of the people that you serve.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing is the business I'm in, it's extremely sensitive, right? I mean, I'm dealing with your entire financial life. Shoot, that's a lot. And I don't take that lightly. And a lot of people, I have a lot of people come talk to me, right, about working together. And I had one guy actually, I hadn't seen him or spoken to him after a couple of calls for 3 or 4 months. I saw him and I was like, oh, hey, how you doing? How are you? He goes, hey, you never followed up with me. All these other guys, they send me emails. They won't leave me alone. You don't want my business? I'm like, you know where I am. We talked, right? I'm not going to be the kind of person that's going to hunt you down for me to shove my services down your throat. Either you need my help or you don't. And that's okay, right? But that's the thing, is that as entrepreneurs, we tie up so much of our own personal self into our business. And so if someone says, oh, I don't want to work with you, what we hear is, I don't like you.
Right.
Which, and then that throws you into this spiral of, no, I have to get them back. I want them to like me, I'll just keep trying. I'll keep trying, right? Ultimately, you're spinning your wheels because, shoot, you could have talked to that guy over there that had $150 million to give you, but you were so worried chasing this guy that hadn't talked to you in 3 months. Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, like, this is the mindset shift, I think, that's important to talk about when we talk about growth, and we talk about how are you scaling and how are you scaling responsibly. Because ultimately, if you can't deliver the level of service that you feel good about, that you feel is excellent, then really you're kind of running a bad business, right? Your business isn't doing the things that you want it to do.
Well, and there's so many schools of thought when we're talking about sales too, like, oh, you've got to follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up. And it's not always about, feel like not wanting that rejection or, oh, I need them to like me. It's just this is what I'm supposed to do, right? We've been trained, like, you have to keep following up and blah, blah, blah. But you're putting, as you said, you're putting all this energy into chasing somebody that may or may not want you. And I know in my experience with the clients that I sign, there have been times when I'm like, I think you need to think about this. Why don't you take this next week? Right. And that's a no in sales. It's like, you got to get them back on the phone like 2 days later at the latest. Like, take the next week and we'll reconvene and see if you're actually ready for this. And I know the people that I have hired, there was just like, I knew the ones I've hired and it was a really good fit and it worked out really well. I just knew there was no question. And it was about how they showed up. It was not about the shit coming out of their mouth. It was about who they were and how they showed up.
And that, I mean, look, that's the same in my business. I add an extra layer of, I think, sensitivity because I'm dealing with their entire net worth, right? That is not a decision that should be taken lightly. I caution people when I've had calls where people are like, oh, look, this is exactly what I wanted. You come highly referred. I want to work with you. And I tell people, listen, I'm going to give you some documents. I'm going to give you more information. I'm not going to have you sign anything today. You go think about this, make sure, right? Because I understand we have this connection. It's great. I'm honored that you want to work with me, but this is all of your stuff. So this is not a decision that we should take lightly. We should be thoughtful about it, right? And again, I think that kind of honesty just doesn't exist, I guess, in most people's minds. They just want to make the sale. So I think we, as entrepreneurs, we have to be really careful about what we're doing in our business and how that really reflects on the image of our business, right? Because your reputation is the thing that people say about you when you're not in the room. So what are people saying about your business when you're not around, right? Is it, oh, that guy just chases all the time, he's just a sales guy? Or is it actually, you know what, I met with him and I had a really great conversation. I actually learned a lot. So maybe I'll work with him, right? That's, what are we going for?
One of the things that I hear in the way you're speaking is that you care. And I think that is the thing that so many people are missing when they're having a sales conversation or just a feeling out conversation. And I know, I mean, we get them all the time. Hey, do you want to jump on a call? And I'm just like, I don't want to jump on a call. I don't want to deal with the sales call, but I do want to have a conversation. And so what I'm hearing is that you're really opening that door to have a conversation so that you can set people up the way you're setting yourself up with your business, which is thoughtful and with a mind to create a foundation that can grow no matter what shakes, no matter what earthquake happens.
Yeah, and I think honestly, one sales strategy for all your listeners would be to educate rather than to sell anything. So that's how I approach things, right? Because the tax and financial industry has gone through great lengths to make it seem that these things are far more complicated than they are, and none of this is taught in school, right? I had a conversation with a gentleman who had an interest-only loan, and he quite truly believed that at the end of the loan, he didn't need to give any of the money back. He just needed to make sure he paid the interest. So that's not how loans work, right? And so when you get an interest only loan, you still need to pay all the money back. But I mean, this is the thing, is that we have an entire nation of individuals that are effectively financially illiterate. And some of them are making millions and millions of dollars. It does not mean that you are stupid in any sort of educational sense, or that you're incompetent in your work. You could be making millions and millions of dollars. In fact, I've worked with people that have been making $5 million a year, but have a negative net worth because, again, they just don't have the good habits. They don't have that education. So I approach these calls first and foremost with, where are you in your understanding of these topics, right? And, I'll get arrangements. Sometimes I'll get the bravado of, oh, I know all this, right? So I'll pick out some obscure piece of that knowledge, and they'll have no idea what I'm talking about. And so I'll explain, though, and I'll be like, listen, it's okay if you don't know this stuff. You're not supposed to know this stuff. Who would have taught you? Where would you have read it, right? And again, the other thing is, as an attorney and as a licensed financial advisor, I have access to more information than any other regular person. So I'm going to necessarily know more, and it's okay to learn. And it's okay to say, you know what, I don't know. I don't know that stuff. And so what I do is I present with, look, let's talk about this stuff just generally. Here's how these systems work. Here's how these laws work. Here's how all of this is set up. Now that we have this baseline understanding of how these things actually fit together, tell me about your situation. What's going on with you, right? And then I end that call with, all right, great. Well, now I have an understanding of what you're looking for. I can send you over a proposal. Or if you think you've gotten what you need, we call it a day and you be well, right? But in this way, I come with, I actually just want to help you. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to sell you anything. I know a lot of stuff. And I know that a lot of this stuff is not taught anywhere. So if I can spread that word and I can give that education, I can help that one extra person, that's worth it to me.
Well, and that's the thing, when we feel that somebody is literally trying to give to us, that is something that builds a trust that is really powerful. And here's the thing, from the other aspect that I think a lot of entrepreneurs aren't thinking of, oh, well, then how much time am I spending on these calls and I'm losing all this stuff? And so when we think about what we're losing, and this is so many people are in this mindset of like, oh, what am I going to lose? Because you can measure what I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose time. I'm going to lose money. I'm going to lose whatever else I might lose, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my wife, my kids. I don't know. But you can measure those things, but you can't see what you're going to gain. Like I always say that a government is running really well when you don't think about the government, because everything's in flow. But when everything is not in flow, you're always thinking about, oh God, what's this new big, beautiful bill? And what am I going to lose? How is it going to affect me? But if everything was just running real smooth for everybody, nobody would even be thinking about what am I going to lose? They'd just be in flow of their life.
Right.
And so when you're operating from this place of what can I give, you don't know, like one person right there might be like, oh, thank you so much for your time. And you might not ever see them, and they might introduce you or refer to you later somebody that ends up being your best client, and you may never even know where that person comes from. So I think there's something really powerful in just being who you are, which is the be the wolf ethos, and giving what you're meant to give in this world, doing what you're meant to do, and trusting, having faith that you're going to be taken care of. And I think that's one of the most difficult things for entrepreneurs.
It's very hard, right? And I mean, I'm reminded of St. Thomas Aquinas, the patron saint of scholars, who said, give expecting nothing thereof. And it's the truth, right? Because we live in a universe that rewards everything that you give. Everything you give to this life, you get back tenfold. This is what I've learned. And so I am happy to spend a half an hour with someone that I will never see again if they get something from that call. Right? If they got a piece of information, they got something that they can use in their lives, wonderful. I am happy to have been of service. It cost me 30 minutes. Do you know how many 30 minutes I've wasted in my life? How many you have, right? On social media, on just watching TV, on all this stuff. We waste 30 minutes all of the time. If I end up wasting 30 minutes 3 times a week, okay, fine. But I don't find that, I don't think about it as a waste. Because I've given something to someone, right? So me giving them some value, some knowledge that they've gotten out of the call, that's enough for me, right? And if they never want to talk to me again, perhaps they'll see me on social media, right? And think, oh, you know what? He gave me some good advice. Why don't I reach out again, right? And that's okay. But that's the thing, is that it's a huge shift in mindset to say, I'm going to be okay with doing as much as I can for as long as I can, but no more, right? Because you have to set governance for yourself. Otherwise, this just consumes you. And then you find yourself working till 4 a.m. every day.
And that goes back to that idea of like, oh, I'm doing more, I'm doing more, I'm doing more. Like, what are you trying to fill up? There's that place where you know where you're satiated, or you know where your boundaries are, you know where that edge of your business is, what it can handle, what it can take on. And you know, ideally, if you're really looking at everything, you can be like, okay, so we're going to make some moves, but let's make sure we have the structure in place. Now, you said that you were working, getting your MBA, and people kept asking you all of these questions about tax and law. And I know that you got interested, or you got moved in the tax direction when you were very young. And there is this thing that I think that the universe just tries and nudges us where we're supposed to be and what it wants us to be doing in this life. Can you tell me a little bit about the journey of the aha, well, maybe this is the business that I need to be doing?
Yeah. So like you said, my mom made me go to H&R Block and do the training for taxes, I think when I was in my teens. But she was, very cognizant of, as an immigrant, not understanding the tax code really was something that she put a lot of focus on from, pretty much from almost the time that she came to the country, right? Because ultimately my dad was working and making money, and she was making money as well. But like all immigrants, the first few years is really tough, right? So she really paid attention to the tax code and made sure that their largest bill, right, generally our lifetime largest bill is taxes, would be as minimal as possible. And she instilled that in me and literally forced me to go to H&R Block to learn that stuff myself. Now, look, we know teenagers, they're going to rebel against everything you're taught, right? So immediately, I never wanted to do tax, right? I didn't want to do any of the paperwork stuff. It was boring because it was easy to me. So I wanted to become a litigator, right? I wanted to be in court, and that's what I did. And that's what I did for 10 years. But ultimately, all paths lead back to mom was right. And so here I am, right, with tax. But yeah, I mean, listen, the other thing is that it sort of gave me this false impression that most Americans know how to do their taxes, because I learned when I was a kid, right? So I figured, most people know how to do this. So this isn't even really relevant information. And it wasn't until getting a little bit older, you have kids, the conversations that you have with your friends, they turn from, the game last night to, oh, did you see this tax law that's coming out now? It's going to change us, right? So it's interesting that as you get older, these kinds of things become more and more important. And I was lucky enough to have this instilled in me at a very young age.
There's one thing that you said in there that really strikes me. I didn't want to do this. It was boring. It was easy. And so often we think like these things that are so easy for us are not the thing, not the direction we need to go. And often it's highlighting our superpowers, the things that we're so good at, and we try and run away, spend lifetimes trying to
Yep.
run away from these things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same thing, right? I mean, you may have a part of your business that maybe you don't like, but your customers love.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's your business, right? I mean, that's the thing that you're going to have to sort of put more emphasis around because it's the thing that is honestly, it's paying your bills, keeping your lights on, right? So, and if you're building a business and you find out that, oh, the thing that I don't like is the thing people like, well, you might need to start thinking about a strategy to exit your business. How can I build this as quickly as possible to sell it? But
Right.
ultimately, that comes from finding a quiet place to think about your business and yourself and really do that inner work so that you can understand and see the field.
Yeah. What is so important to you about your business and what you bring for people?
Honestly, it's the this sounds it sounds repetitive, but it's the education, right? I love watching people have that aha moment.
Yeah.
Here's what we're going to do. Here's how this all fits together. And so when we do X, it triggers Y, and then Z happens. To watch people go, oh my God, that's awesome, and actually understand what I'm saying to them. That's the most rewarding part for me, is to be able to create effectively someone that now to take someone from zero understanding to a moderately sophisticated level of understanding of their own holdings, of their own stuff. And that's the thing, is why I care so much, because ultimately I've not declined to work with people that have just said, I just want you to do it all. Just do it for me. I don't even want to know. You want to know? This is all your money. You have to know. I'm not going to work with you if you're going to tell me that you're okay with me just doing whatever I want.
Like
Because that's,
absolutely being the responsibility, just like, yeah.
yeah, because ultimately this is yours. You worked really hard for it. Don't you want to know? So that's kind of how I approach these things. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that the work that I do with my clients, it really gives them this sense of peace so that they can enjoy their life. And that's exactly what I'm hearing, is that you're bringing to people this education, you're helping them to understand so they have that aha and that greater understanding. And that gives them, whether they know it or not, that sense of peace. And especially because you're not just working with people who are trying to offload, making their peace your responsibility.
Right.
You're contributing and helping them create their own peace. And that is a much more sustainable thing for them and for the peace that they get to bring into the rest of their life.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Okay, how can people get in touch with you, work with you? Tell me all the things,
Yeah.
and then I have another question I want to ask, but
Oh, absolutely. So my email, nick@crownpointtax.com. I'm sure we'll be sharing the show notes. You can find me on LinkedIn. I do some LinkedIn lives from time to time. I'm on Instagram, and crownpointtax.com. The crown has an E at the end because I'm fancy, I guess. So yeah.
great. So my last question for you is, what did you need to know then that would have helped you get through that anger period when you were frustrated with the firm for not giving you the opportunity to chase your idea?
Yeah, I think it would have been to remember that the greatest revenge is massive success, right? The Frank Sinatra quote. But you need then to define, what is massive success, right? Is it all of the clients, as much money as I can have? Or is it, I get to take off on a Tuesday and go play with my daughter because I want to, right? How are you defining that success, and what does that mean to you? because ultimately, I think had I done that, maybe I'm not even here, right? Maybe I'm doing something completely different. But ultimately, had I had that mindset of, okay, look, didn't work out with them, forget it, never mind. I have an idea. I think I can execute on it. But before I do that, what are the possible scenarios that happen, right? So it's either this works, it doesn't work, it kind of works, right? And then from there, okay, if it really works, what threats do I have? What problems am I going to have to face, right? And in doing this sort of more cold and calculating, sort of a methodical approach, you'll create a much more sustainable business. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs come from the hip and a lot of sort of fire and just, we're going to move fast and break things and we're just going to do it. And ultimately that can lead to burnout, right? Because ultimately no one likes to fail. We all fail. We all learn something from that failure, but you can't be so terrified of failure that you're just going to do and go as fast as you can without really thinking about the consequences, because that's actually a really great way to fail.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. I appreciate you, your heart, and the way you move through the world and your business.
Thank you so much for having me today. It was lovely.
Yeah, awesome. All right, everybody, we will see you next time. And remember, when you unleash the power of you, who you truly are, you evolve humanity. We'll see you next time on Be the Wolf. Bye, everyone.